Hey everyone, it's Justin from Black Bear Creative, and today I want to show you guys how to design a really clean, modern business card. So you can pretty much design it in a lot of different programs these days, even online free programs like Canva, Corel Draw. There's a lot of different sort of things you can use. I basically use Adobe Illustrator, but the main point of this video is I want to show you sort of like the steps I take to make it look clean, simple and effective, and not really go through so much what the tools do, because depending on what program you're using, the tools will vary, and how to use them will vary as well. So let's get started. So we'll open up Illustrator here. We're going to create a new project. So just make sure it's print. Keep this in millimeters. So width. Bear in mind this is going to be for Australian standard sizing. I know in the US it's a bit different. I think it's 3.5 by 2 inches. I'm just going to go the standard Australian size, which is 90 by 55 millimeters. Make sure it's horizontal. 2 artboards because I want to do front and back. Now we need to add a bleed, and I'll show you what that actually is. But this is pretty much the space, the extra space around the card, which will be cut when it goes to print. So we'll just have that at 3. Let's do 5 mil. Do a 5 millimeter bleed. Let's call it business card. Just want to make sure it's in CMYK color. 300 pixels per inch. So this is high quality for print. And yeah, let's start it off. Okay, cool. So when I was talking about that bleed, this is the bleed area here. This is like the overlap, which will get cut off when it goes to print. We're just going to make some guidelines so we know where everything is. Make sure everything is nice and neat and aligned. Just going to do the other side as well. Okay. So this is going to be our front, this is going to be our back. Okay, so let's go full screen here. Let's just move some of this stuff out the way so you can see better. So I added those guidelines here because this is where the end of the artboard is, and this is where it gets trimmed. So I like to know where that cutting point is. Now I'm just going to add a bit of a border around this. I like to just make little boxes just as guides, just so I can know. So 5 mil. Yeah, we'll keep it at 5. So I'm just going to make this box 5 mil high, 5 mil wide, and then I'm just going to make some more guidelines just so I can keep everything neat in a imaginary border. Like I said, it keeps things in line. And when things are in line, then they look neat and tidy. So I'm just going to add it to this one here. You can see some of my guides are a bit off. Just going to unlock them for now, just make that a bit neater. Oh, it's already done. And bear in mind that depending on the program you're using, you might not be able to add guidelines. I know in Canva, I've never used Canva, but I've heard that it might be a bit more simplified than, say, this Adobe program. But either way, just keep in mind, if you can, the more guidelines you can sort of add, the better it is in terms of alignment. So I'm just going to lock these guides. Alright, cool. So I want this to be a black background, like so. So you see how I covered, starting from here, that red guide all the way to the end. So this makes sure that when it's trimmed when it goes to print, there's no white edges. If I was to make it end at the end of the artboard, like so, there's a good chance that when they trim the actual board, there will be a white space here. Even if, because sometimes I might be just a quarter of a mil off without me knowing, that's going to print white, and it just won't look good at all when you go to print. So that's why we have bleeds, so there's no confusion and everything will look nice and flush and no little sneaky white trim marks there. So this is going to be like a generic black bear business card. So now let's add to the other side, because they're both going to be black like that. Okay, so now we've got our backgrounds in, and we're going to start adding some elements here. Let's add the logo, and what I want to do is go to my logo files, and let's go to the white one. I'm just going to open an EPS file in Illustrator. So an EPS file is a file that's for print. It's just a vector file that can be used for multiple print applications. I strongly recommend you use EPS or some sort of vector file if it is going to go to print. If you were going to use anything else, just at least make it 300 dpi high resolution. So yeah, like the most common mistake I see people do is with a PNG file with no background, with a transparent background, that it's super small, and when they go add it to a business card or any sort of print document, it looks really fuzzy, really pixelated when it goes to print. So yeah, don't do that. Make sure you use a high resolution of a JPEG, or if the best case is an EPS file, any vector file is the best, because I can stretch this no matter how small, how big, and it doesn't lose resolution. It's still sharp, and it will print sharp as well. So I'm just going to keep this design very simple so you can mimic it, and the goal is just pretty much keep it simple, keep a good amount of space here. See, this is why I've added that those guidelines. Now it's all flush. There's the same amount of space there and the same amount of space there. I want to go a bit creative and use a bit more negative space. Place this in this corner here so it fits nicely in there. I can add some elements, okay, let's keep it really simple, hey? Let's just keep this on the front here, and let's add some details on the back. So let's keep the information really simple. Don't oversimplify it. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't add your life story on a business card. Remember, this is a very small space to work with, so punchy, to the point. So I already got my text here, so I'm going to add it. And also, whenever you're designing anything, especially if you're doing it, do-it-yourself sort of style, have a think about your branding. Have a think, keep it consistent. We have a style guide for at Black Bear, and we always use specific fonts to keep everything consistent, to keep our brand messaging consistent. So we use Gotham, either bold or regular, depending. So I'm just going to make sure that's nice and flush with those lines there. We're going to, with the lining in like the spacing between each line of text, we're just going to increase that a bit more space. I'm just going to add an element here. And remember that this is none of this. So this, from here to here, nothing will be seen. We need to just put it just over the trim mark here. Just going to make that blue. Is actually the right color we need. I'm just going to open this, and I'm going to get the right color. So I'm going to match it with our style guide here. So it's 66. Oop. Now I'm going to color match this. And look, if you don't have a style guide for your branding, it's okay. Just think about all the other collateral that you've got to have, like that you've either designed yourself or got someone else to design for you, and try and keep it consistent with the colors they're using. So the colors are so we need to match this CMYK color, because when it goes to print, we like all this teal blue to be the same each time we go to print, and this ensures that we are using the right teal blue. So that's 0, Y, 19, K9. There we go. And that should be, and look, and this is where sometimes people get a bit freaked out. It doesn't look like the same color as in certain documents, but we've gone to print with this many times, and whatever color's on the screen, it never matches the color it is when it's actually printed. That's a whole nother story in itself, but as long as it's color matched to the style guide, we're all good. Okay, so I think 12 point is a tad bit big. I was going to go 10. So this is what we do. Let's add our contact information. Let's have a look here, see how we can add this. Alright, so I don't want everything to be bold because it starts to look very stale or very boring. We're just going to add, try not to go anything below 7 to 6 point, because then it starts to get hard to read. The main goal of this is to have something very legible, very easy to read, so when you give it to a possible customer or client, they can get the details they need and not have to, you know, throw out your card because you can't be bothered to read it. Now, see, so our secondary font's Helvetica, so we're just going to use that for the information. I think we might, for my name, use Gotham Bold. Let's boost that up a bit more. Let's make that a little bit bigger. Bold these. And look, you can add the full, you know, Word, mobile, email, website. I like to keep things very, very simple, very clean, modern, so I don't like adding a lot of text. I just like to get to the point, what I do, what Black Bear does, and how do you reach us. That's pretty much all I want people to know. They don't need to know our story or anything. They can find that out when they go to the website. You can try laying it up together there. Just going to hide my guides for a bit. And look, the biggest trap non-designers fall in is feeling like they need to add more and more and more bells and whistles, you know, to empty space, to look, depending on who you're trying to target. With design, the main thing is to communicate a message and execute it. If you don't, and with less things to interrupt, I think that's the goal. If we start adding more and more stuff, or we start adding photos of, you know, websites that we've done or logos we've done, it makes it very busy. It doesn't tell the brand story. It just, yeah, it's not, doesn't have much of a purpose. This is just really just a basic design to show it's clean. We know how to design. We know what looks good. We know what modern contemporary design looks like. That's sort of the message we want to sort of portray. We don't have any sales coupons on here because that's not what we're about. We're about quality design, and that's sort of what we want to try and push through here. But like, then again, you could be selling a totally different product, different service, and you might need to add more information. You might need to add some more design elements depending on your brand story. It always changes depending on, you know, what the end goal is that you're trying to achieve. So let's see if we can add. I'm just playing around and just seeing if we can find a better spot to add this. No, I quite like it there. And just see if how things read. We read left to right. I like this on one line because that's sort of how you read it. That's all one section we do. That's one section, that's one section there. I'd rather read like that. Icons. So if you have any social media icons, feel free to add them in. Don't add the hyperlink. I don't know why people feel like they need to add the hyperlink to all their social media on their business cards. Personally, I find that pointless. The only reason why you add hyperlinks is for people to click onto them and jump to your site. This is a print medium. You can't jump to a website straight from, looking at the card. So I don't see any point to that. If you want to add a QR code, fine. That's that is much more suitable than to add all the hyperlink text. But in my experience, QR codes are a bit dated. Not many people tend to utilize them, so you're best off freeing that space and adding more important things in there. Okay. Now let's see. So I'm just adding some really simplified social media icons just to let people know that they can find us on other platforms. I mostly just put up the visual ones, or the ones we're more active on. See if you're ever on here, you can check them out yourself. So we've got Facebook, Instagram, and yes, I know that Instagram icon's an older one, but you can always find more modern ones. So add LinkedIn. So with all these icons I'm adding in, these are all EPS files. They're all vector files. This, and like I said, it ensures that everything is nice and sharp when it goes to print. There's no surprises, nothing's going to be pixelated. You can source these anywhere on the net. They're very easy to find. Just make sure you download the vector file, the EPS file, the Illustrator file. If you do that, you'll be fine. Make sure these are all centered. Right, just a bit thick. Let's go half a point. Cool. So yeah, and the next thing when you actually are going to print with these, have a think about the material you're going to use. Especially when you design very simplified designs like this, I like to use very textured artboards. So at your local print shop, just ask and see what they have in stock. If they have anything a bit more textured, a bit more of a creative edge to it, these types of simplified designs will work really well. They're just because the negative space shows up all the nice textures through the card stock, and it's just it takes it to it's simplified, but it's very elegant, very sophisticated. especially when you've got those, that material showing through. So keep in mind when you're going to print with these as well. If you're going to print on a very plain cardstock, then you maybe add a few more design elements in there. If you really want to jazz it up a bit, go with like a matte cellophane finish if you want that that less glossy look. Just keep in mind that might change the colouring a bit when you go to print. But yeah, so that's pretty much the design there. There's so much more you can do that, in terms of design, but just to keep it all really simple. Main points is always the obvious stuff: name, either position or the basic contact details, mobile, email, website. You want them to do something, you want them to go somewhere, you need a call to action there. Don't forget that. That's just the basics of what you need to do. You can add your position, like I said, you can add your position, your title of the business, and yeah, keep it really basic in terms of what you want, the message you want to show the client or the customer. Just keep it real simple. Tell them what you do in either a very one sentence or a couple short lines, punchy text. If you got to get a copywriter, get a copywriter. But just stay away from going overboard with the text. This is not a website. You're not explaining your whole business story, how you started up. It's all irrelevant. Just keep it really simple. And yeah, like the most important stuff is your contact details. How are these people going to follow up with you? Especially having your social media icons, knowing where else they can find you. Normally, we'd give business cards out, and they'll look for us on LinkedIn, or we'll look for them on LinkedIn, and we'll connect via LinkedIn. So that's why we definitely have LinkedIn there. And yeah, so just keep it simple, keep it clean, line everything up. Create guidelines, line it all up nicely, and you should be okay. Now, we're just going to go through how to set this up for print. So we've got our bleeds, they're all sorted. Everything is nice and lined up. Nothing's near this trim area here. We need to go through the text. With this text, we need to outline everything. And the reason why we outline is because if we were to send this file to the printer or to somebody else that is going to look at it for approval, if they don't have that font that we used, whatever system you're previewing the PDF on will just use a supplement text, or you won't be able to see any of this text if the font is not there. And that's where you have issues of things missing when you show it to somebody else. The other way to solve this is you don't have to outline, but at least supply the font that you used when you're sending it to the printer or you're sending it to somebody else. But normally, just rule of thumb is to outline all the text, so there's no chance of anything missing or disappearing when it goes to print. And the other thing is, I like to, these are all strokes, so we want to go object, expand stroke. So now this is just a good housekeeping rule, because sometimes when things get resized, or there's just odd times where strokes can be, when they are decreased in size, they get fatter. It's just in relation to the stroke point size that you've set. I like doing that. It makes me feel like everything can't go wrong. And yeah, so this thickness of these lines will stay the same no matter what size I increase the whole card to. If I need to decrease the card size or increase it, these the thickness of these lines will stay the same. And yeah, so also make sure all these colors are the right colors in terms of CMYK. These all match correctly. Check this. Yeah, these should be all the same. I already made sure they're all good. This is already outlined, this logo, so I don't need to worry about that. That's all good. And yeah, so once that's done, I'm just going to save this as a PDF. Save as Adobe PDF. Make sure it's high quality print. What I like to do is have a high quality print and have trim marks on there. So I go to marks and bleeds. It will have those trim marks where these incisions will be made or where it will be cut. Save that. We're just going to make sure, double check everything, make sure everything is nice and clean and nothing is missing. So this is where it's going to be cut. You can see the trim marks here, trim marks there, and yeah, everything looks nice and clean. If I zoom in, everything is sharp, nothing is pixelated. And the final thing is make sure everything is spelled correctly. There's no mistakes within the website or anything like that. Make sure it's all correct, because the last thing you want is to print off a lot of these business cards and realize that you made a mistake. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at info@blackbeardcreative.com.au. And yeah, I hope this helped, and just remember, keep it simple, keep it clean, and you should be fine.